Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing good, and today I am here with a video on components of food class 6 science. I am Roshni from LearnoHub, the free learning platform where you can learn anything about math, science, tips and tricks absolutely for free. You can also visit our website at learnohub.com. Food is extremely important for the survival of each and every living organism. Whether you talk about human beings, animals, plants, insects, or like the tiniest living organism to the huge one, all of them need food for their survival. Now the question is, what is there inside food that helps us to survive? What happens when you do not eat for a day? You feel weak. You don't feel like doing anything. Why? Because you do not get the energy. Now the question is, from where does the energy come? Obviously from food, but what magic is there inside food? So the food has a lot of components within it. In fact, different types of food have different types of components within it. And these components give us the nutrients that our body needs to function. So in this video, we are going to learn about the importance of the nutrients present in food, what are the different nutrients present in different types of food, what we should eat more, what we should eat less, and we are going to talk about all of that. So are we all ready to get started? Let's get started.
Food is something that we eat. So that's how we know food. So we have discussed quite a bit about food in our previous lesson, where we saw that what are the various sources of food, how do we get food, why do we need food. So we have discussed about all those basic things, and based on that we learned that anything that organisms eat or drink for their survival, that is termed as food. So when we talk about organisms, it could be human beings, it could be insects, birds, animals. So it's like all living organisms, including plants. Now all of the life forms, they need food because food provides them energy, and this food again could be anything. For example, human beings, we eat plant products, like we eat seeds, leaves of plants, we eat cereal, grains, we also eat egg, fish and things like that. So different organisms will have different food habits, but all of them need food in order to survive. So if any organism doesn't receive food for a couple of days continuously, then what would happen? The organism would die. So it will not be able to survive. So let's look at some organisms and what do they eat. So when you think of rabbit, a common food item which a rabbit eats is carrot. So we often see a rabbit with a carrot. You think of a cat is very fond of milk, so it drinks milk. Think of birds. Now again, different birds have different food habits. Now some birds, they are very fond of seeds, while others are very fond of tiny insects and worms. Think of a cow. The cow mostly eats grass or the plant leaves, so they directly feed on plants. So different organisms have different food habits. Now when we talk about ourselves, what do we eat? Now if you look at our food, we eat a variety of food items. Now some of us eat a lot of vegetables and fruits, either in the raw form as salads or by cooking them into, like we prepare different variety of dishes using these fruits and vegetables. So one food item is these. Some of us also eat products which are obtained from other animals, for example, egg, fish, meat. So this is also eaten by human beings. We also eat a lot of cereals like bread or chapati or rice or maize, corn. So all of these are cereal grains. So we also feed on them. In fact, they form the most, like they are like the rice or the chapati, so they are like the basic food or the staple food for human beings. You also eat juices, French fries, burgers, pizzas, so they are also variety of food items. And we also consume a lot of dairy products, that is the products which are obtained from milk. So we consume milk directly, and we also consume a lot of products like curd or butter, cheese, So these are all obtained from milk. So these milk products also form a major part of our diet. So these are the variety of items which we eat. Food is required for the survival of the entire population. So when you talk about human beings, we are not talking about only ourselves, or we are not talking only about our family. Rather, we are talking about the entire population of human beings. Now, looking at the variety of food, again, you see huge variety of food. So if you look at the food items which we eat, so a lot of us eat something like this, where we have rice, we have chapati, we have curries, we have dal, we have curd. So that's how the menu is. Whereas a lot of times we eat other items like idli and dosa, which is very popular in the southern parts of India. We also eat tortillas or rice. So you see, huge variety is there in terms of food. We also eat fast food like pizza, burger, French fries. You talk about pizza, curd. So these are the dairy products which are a part of our diet. We consume juices. Now the question is, there is so much of variety in the food, but why do we need food? So this is something which we already answered in the previous lesson, because food is something that gives us energy, right? So what we learned is, food gives us energy to do various activities. Whether you look at this lady who is performing yoga. So when you perform yoga or when you try to do exercise, have you noticed that if you exercise continuously for half an hour or 1 hour, what happens at the end of 1 hour? You tend to feel tired. Why? Because when you are doing that exercise or when you are doing yoga, a lot of energy is being spent in doing that. So as a result, what happens? You are losing energy gradually. So think of doing any kind of activity, whether you see this man who is cutting down a tree, though cutting down a tree is not a good thing to do, but when he is doing this job, he is doing some work, so some energy is being spent from his body. Therefore, after some time, again, he also gets tired. So whether you jog or even when you think, you are actually not doing any physical work, but still some energy is being spent by your body. So your body needs energy to think. So have you ever seen that when you are very hungry, you haven't eaten anything since morning, and then you are asked to solve a problem in mathematics? So have you noticed that you don't feel like doing it because you are feeling hungry, so your entire concentration is towards your hunger. So you are not able to think. You are not able to apply your brain. So that's because even your brain works only when there is energy in your body. So it needs energy to work. Even when we sleep, our body needs energy. That's because when we are sleeping, we are not doing any work. But the organs inside our body, they are still working. So even when we sleep, our heart beats. Even when we sleep, the blood circulates throughout our body. Even when we sleep, we breathe in, breathe out. So all these activities are still taking place inside our body, and energy is needed for these activities also to perform. And wherever we need energy, so from where are we going to get that energy? So that energy comes inside our body through food. So when we study, we need energy. So in that case, we definitely need a lot of energy. So here we saw that to do any kind of activity, whether it is a physical activity or mental activity, you would need some energy inside your body. And you get that energy through the food which we eat. So food is extremely essential. That is why if you stop eating food for some time, your body doesn't have energy. So gradually you will not be able to perform any of the physical or mental activities. And finally, the processes which are taking place inside your body, that might also stop because they also need energy to do their job. So that is why it is very important to eat proper food. How does food provide us energy? Now, what food provides is nutrients. Now, what is nutrients? So these are those substances that provide nourishment which are needed for growth and development of life. Now, different organisms, as we keep eating, what happens? So think of human beings. Now, when we are born as very tiny babies, small height, small weight. So we were like very tiny. But over a period of time, what happened? we kept eating, drinking, we took healthy diet, we had healthy food, we ate fruits, vegetables, and as a result, we started growing up. Our height started to increase, our weight started to increase, so our maturity level increases. So over a period of say 10 years, we are quite a grown-up child. Again, over a period of 20 years, we are a mature adult. So basically, with time, as our body keeps on receiving the required nourishment, the nourishment is nothing but the substances that will help the body to grow. So these substances are called nutrients, and these nutrients are present in the food. So if we eat proper food, there will be proper growth of our body, and as a result, we will stay healthy and disease free. So that's what food does. Now, what are those kind of nutrients which are provided by the food? So that is something which we will see in the next slide. But these nutrients are present in food items like whatever we eat, whether you think of milk or you think of cheese or you think of fish, you think of meat. So all of them contain nutrients. Now there are many different types of nutrients which are present in food. We will quickly have a look at that. So when you talk about the nutrients, so let us look at all these food items and let's see what is that specific nutrient which is being provided by that particular food item. Now it is not necessary that one food item can provide only one nutrient. It can provide multiple nutrients as well. So let's have a look. So here you see a lot of food items. So let's concentrate on milk. So milk is a rich source of a nutrient calcium. And why do our body needs calcium? Because calcium helps us to maintain strong bones, strong teeth. So if our body has enough calcium, we are going to have strong bones and teeth. So milk is a rich source of calcium. Now that doesn't mean that milk contains only calcium. Milk might contain other nutrients also, but calcium is present in a larger amount, and that is why we say milk is a very rich source of calcium. Think of fish. So fishes are very rich source of proteins, and proteins are needed for the growth and overall growth and development of our body. It helps in the tissue repair within our body. So for the overall growth, we need proteins. Think of bread or any other item like rice or roti or bread. So they are all rich in carbohydrates, and carbohydrates primarily provide energy to the body. So without carbohydrates, we will not get energy. So that is why bread or roti or rice, that is an essential part of our daily diet. You think of fruits. So the fruits are rich source of minerals, and minerals are again needed for to maintain a healthy body. Think of butter. They are rich source of fats. Now, when you listen to this word fat, you often feel that okay, fats are something, if we eat them, we will become fat, and that is not good. But that's not the case. Fats are also very good source of energy. They are like instant source of energy. So as soon as you eat food, you immediately get energy. But yes, if you consume fats in excess amount, that is not good for your health, because that results in overweight of your body, and which can cause many other diseases. Think of green vegetables like spinach. So it is a very rich source of vitamins, and again, there are many different types of vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, E, and so on, and each of those vitamins have a specific role to play in our body. So spinach, they are very rich source of vitamins. In fact, most of the green leafy vegetables are very rich source of vitamins. So here on this slide, we saw the different types of nutrients. So the food that we eat, they are rich in, they provide us all these nutrients like proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, and our body needs all of them. So what we are going to do next is we are going to talk about each of these nutrients in little more detail. But how do we know that which food item is rich in which nutrient? How do we know that we need to drink milk so that our body gets calcium? How do we know that carbohydrate is present in bread or minerals are present in fruits? So basically that's what we are going to discuss in the next section. This might be a very common scenario at your home sometimes. Now when you do not want to eat bread, your mom might be telling that eat bread, it has a lot of carbohydrates. Now the next question that might bother you is, how do I know that it has carbohydrates? So what is the proof that the bread has carbohydrates? Okay, so that is what we will do in this section. Now you are given a food item. So let's say you are given potatoes in a plate and you are asked, does it contain carbohydrates? So what would you say? Whether it contains or not? So you might say that you are not sure, because just looking at the food item, just looking at the potatoes, they don't really tell you anything that it is rich in carbohydrates or proteins or fats or minerals or vitamins. So you are really not sure what does it contain. So that is where we will talk about some specific tests to prove if a food item contains carbohydrates or not. Now, even before that, what exactly are carbohydrates? We know that they are nutrients, but when you look at them chemically, they are made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So that is why they are called carbohydrates. Carbo is from carbon, hydro is from hydrogen, and it also contains oxygen. So these are the three important constituents of all carbohydrates. Now, some examples of carbohydrates are starch, lactose, glucose, fructose, cellulose. These are all examples of carbohydrates. Now, in your higher classes, you will learn that some carbohydrates are simple carbohydrates. So, they have very simple structure. Their chemical structure is very simple. Whereas some carbohydrates are like very complicated. So, many small units of simple carbohydrates, they join together to form complex carbohydrates. So you will learn about all those in higher classes. So here you can just look at these examples. Now different carbohydrates, different types of carbohydrates are present in different products. For example, when you talk about starch, starch is present in high amount in food items like potatoes, maize, cereal grains basically. So they are very rich source of starch. You talk about fructose. They are present in fruits. That's why the name fructose, from fruits. So you talk about lactose, that is present in milk. So milk also is a source of carbohydrates. So milk not only provides calcium, it also provides carbohydrates. Glucose, you can find it in honey. Cellulose is found in plants, especially the green leafy vegetables which we obtain from plants. So these are all examples of different types of carbohydrates, and all of them are found in huge amounts in different types of food items. So now some examples of food items which contain carbohydrates are potatoes, banana, apple, corn, wheat, rice, sugarcane, glucose. So these are all examples of food items which contain a lot of carbohydrates, or you can say which are rich source of carbohydrates. Now this is something which I am telling you, that potato is a rich source of carbohydrate or wheat is a rich source of carbohydrate. But how do you prove that yes, potato contains carbohydrates? So for that we perform a test called iodine test. So we make use of iodine and we perform an experiment which proves whether a food item contains carbohydrates or not. So what we need to do iodine test is, first of all, we need to prepare an iodine solution. So how do we prepare that iodine solution? So for that we would need a few drops of iodine added to water, and that's how we prepare the iodine solution. So as you can see here in this beaker, you have some water. You add a few drops of 2 to 3 drops of iodine to it. Now as soon as you add this iodine solution, what happens? You get an iodine solution, that is iodine diluted with water. So it has maximum amount of water and only a few drops of iodine. The moment you add the iodine, what happens? The color of the water changes to purple in color, so light purple. So that's how you get this iodine solution. Now, what are we going to do with this iodine solution? Take a slice of potato or whatever food item you want to check for carbohydrates. You take that food item, a sample of it in a plate. Now take some iodine solution, this solution which you have prepared. So put a few drops of this iodine solution on the potato. After a couple of seconds or after a couple of minutes, what do you see? You observe a change in color in this area. So that area where you had put the iodine solution, so there you observe a change in color. And this appearance of a blue-black color indicates the presence of starch. So if you get a blue-black color, then that means starch is present there. And if there is no blue-black color, that means starch is not present. So when you perform this iodine test with potato, what happens? Obviously, a blue-black color appears because starch is present in potato. So we say that the iodine test is positive for potato. So wherever the iodine test is positive, that means starch is present. And if the iodine test is negative, that means starch is not present. So positive test would mean that this blue-black color will appear after adding iodine solution. If this color doesn't appear, that means the iodine test is negative, and that means that starch is not present in that particular food item. So you see, this is a very simple test. So you can just prepare iodine solution, put that iodine solution in various food items. You want to try it out with all the vegetables and fruits, you can just do that, and you will be able to see this change in color only in a few of them, and only those contain carbohydrates, others don't. Now if you take up other substances like bread, rice, maize or potato, for all of them we see that the iodine test comes out to be positive. That is, for all of them, when you add a few drops of iodine, you can see a bluish black color on the food item. Now in a similar way, we can also try to test if a food item contains protein or not. So let's say a bowl of pulses is kept in front of you and you are asked whether it contains proteins. But now you have an idea, right, that I should be able to test that. The way I tested it for carbohydrates, there should be some other way for proteins as well. Yes, there is. So before we talk about the test for proteins, let's see what are proteins. So these are compounds which are essential part of living organisms. So living organisms, they very badly need proteins. In fact, our body, the structure of our body is also made up of protein. So when you look at the entire body structure of human beings, not only human beings, you should talk about different organisms as well. So you see that proteins, they form a very major part of our body. So they not only help in growth, development and tissue repair of our body, they also form a part of the structure of our body. So if you look at it, inside our body we have enzymes, we have hormones, and all of these play a very critical role. What are hormones? They are nothing but proteins. What are enzymes? They are again nothing but proteins. So the various chemicals which are, getting secreted inside our body and they are playing an important role inside our body, they are nothing but proteins. So proteins are an essential part of living organisms. So we cannot think of any life form without proteins. Now, some of the food items which contain proteins are milk, cheese, fish, groundnuts, meat, pulses. So these are very rich source of protein. So that is why it is said that people who are non-vegetarian, they already have a lot of proteins in their diet through fish and meat. But those who are vegetarian, that is, they do not eat food obtained directly from other animals, so they should concentrate a lot on foods which are rich in proteins. For example, groundnuts, for example, pulses. So pulses should definitely be a part of your diet because they are very rich source of proteins. Now again, the same question, how exactly do we test whether a particular food item contains proteins or not? So let's look at the test for proteins. So for this, what we need is a caustic soda solution. So what is caustic soda? So caustic soda is actually sodium hydroxide, which is written as NaOH. Or you can say this is sodium hydroxide. So that is caustic soda. Now again, how do we prepare caustic soda solution? So whenever we have to prepare solution of anything, what we do is we just mix that substance with water, and that's how we are able to prepare solution. Like we prepared iodine solution, we added a few drops of iodine to water and we got iodine solution. Similarly here also, what we will do is we will take some sodium hydroxide. So look at sodium hydroxide. This is how it looks like. It is in the solid form. It is white in color and it is available in the form of flakes or granules. Like here in this picture you see granules, but it is also available in the form of flakes. And this sodium hydroxide is used in paper industries and textile industries a lot. It is also used in soaps and detergents. They are also very good drain cleaners. So those are some of the places where sodium hydroxide or caustic soda is being used. Now let's see how would we make use of caustic soda solution. So what we will do is we will take around 10 grams of caustic soda, because caustic soda is available in solid form, as I said. So we will take around 10 grams of caustic soda and we will add it to 100 ml of water. And when we mix them properly, what we get is caustic soda solution. So this caustic soda solution will be used to test for proteins. So this is one thing that we need to test proteins. Now there could be another solution that we can use, which is copper sulfate solution. What is copper sulfate? It is CuSO4. So that's copper sulfate. So this copper sulfate solution can also help us to test the presence of protein. So copper sulfate is actually an inorganic salt, that is a salt which doesn't contain carbon. So that's why it is so you can say it is an inorganic salt. So look at it, it is like in the form of crystals. So it seems to be powdery, but actually when you look at copper sulfate solution, it is like a powdered form of copper sulfate crystals. So it is formed when copper metal is treated with concentrated sulfuric acid. So copper is a metal, right? So when copper metal is reacted with concentrated sulfuric acid, so then you get copper sulfate. So that's how you get copper sulfate. Its color is bright blue in color. It is in crystalline form. So if you look at it more closely, you will see that it is like tiny crystals of copper sulfate, and it is highly soluble in water. So it is water soluble. So it will be easier to make a solution of copper sulfate. So when you mix it with water, it will get dissolved in water. So how would you prepare the solution? You take approximately 2 grams of copper sulfate and you add it to 100 milliliter of water. So what you get is this copper sulfate solution, which is slightly blue in color, obviously because the crystals are blue in color. So when it dissolves completely in water, so the solution also turns blue. So now we are ready with the caustic soda solution and the copper sulfate solution. So now we will see how exactly do we test a sample with protein. So let's look at the procedure. So let us think of a substance which is rich in protein. So here I have considered the example of pulses. Now pulses are very rich source of protein. So we know that they contain protein, but here we will just try to perform this test using the caustic soda solution and copper sulfate solution to see that how it proves that it contains protein. So for doing this test, the first thing that we have to do is we need to make a paste of this pulses, because the pulses are like in the form of granules. So you actually need to make a paste of it, maybe in the mixer grinder. Once you make a paste of it, then take the paste in a test tube. So this is your test tube, and inside the test tube you take the paste which you have prepared by grinding these pulses. Now here you would have the paste of the pulses, and you also add some water to it. So you will get a kind of a liquidy, a semi-liquid thing which has the paste of the pulses and some water. Okay, so now what we do? Now we add to it some 2 drops of copper sulfate solution. So around approximately 2 drops of copper sulfate solution is being added to this test tube. And then around 10 drops of caustic soda solution is added. So you first added 2 drops of copper sulfate solution, then you added around 10 drops of sodium hydroxide or caustic soda solution, and then you shake it really well, the test tube, so that all the things get mixed together very well. The caustic soda solution, copper sulfate solution, the paste of the pulses, so everything should get mixed really well. Now once you have shaken it really well, after that you leave it undisturbed for a couple of minutes. You just leave it as it is. Do not move it, do not shake it. So leave it for some time, and then what you observe, You observe a change in color, as you can see here. So what happens is a violet color appears. And this appearance of violet color indicates the presence of proteins. Now, if the violet color doesn't appear, that means protein is not present in the sample. But in this case, pulses are very rich source of proteins. So obviously, violet color appeared. So this is how you can test. So not only with the pulses, you consider any item. Maybe you can take some potato, smash them, put them in a test tube, add some water, and then you add 2 drops of copper sulfate, add 10 drops of sodium hydroxide, and just try to see if the color changes or not. So if the color changes, that means, if the color changes to violet, that would mean that proteins are present in potato. If it doesn't, that would mean there is no protein present in potato. So this is how we can check which food items contain proteins and which do not. So here we would say in this scenario that the protein test for the pulses is positive. Now similarly, you can try out the protein test for various substances, and for all of these substances it turns out to be positive. Whether you talk about groundnut, you talk about fishes, you talk about yogurt, you talk about pulses. So for all of them, the protein test is positive. Now similarly, we might be interested to test if a particular food item contains fats or not. So you take some butter, and if you are asked if it contains fats, so I think now you are more confident that you will be able to check it. But how? Let's have a look. So in order to test for fats, now fats are oily substances. They contain oil. Whether you talk about butter, you talk about ghee, you talk about cheese, all of them contain oil. So presence of oily patch on paper indicates the presence of fat. So for fats, you do not need any solution or anything. All you would need is a piece of paper. So you take a piece of paper, put that sample on that piece of paper. So let's say you have taken a fried egg. So you have fried the egg in sufficient amount of oil, and now you have kept that fried egg on a piece of paper. And you wrap the fried egg with this piece of paper. Now after some time, let the paper dry. You remove the egg from there and you allow the paper to dry. What happens? You see that portion of the paper where the egg was kept, that becomes slightly translucent. Now you have learnt about translucent and opaque in physics, right? So opaque is that substance through which we cannot see what is there on the other side. So if you have a piece of paper in front of you, it is actually going to block the things which is there just behind the paper. You will not be able to see things through the paper. But through translucent objects, like through this area, you will be able to see slightly whatever is there on the other side of the paper. For example, a glass window. Even when the glass window is closed, you are able to see everything very clearly which is there on the other side. That's because the glass window is transparent. Similarly, for translucent, you cannot completely see what is there on the other side, but partially you can see. So here in this case, you will see that part of the paper which was in contact with the fatty substance, it became translucent. So you can feel the difference between the texture of this part and this part. So this proves that the substance contained fat. You think of any substance which is rich in fat, whether you talk about the pakoras, you talk about the French fries, at the moment you keep them on a sheet of paper, you'll be able to see those kind of oily patch on the paper. Now, if that substance contains too much of fats, then the oily patch would also be more. If the substance contains less amount of fat, then the oily patch would also be less. So for these, we would say that the test is positive. Now for various other substances for which fat test would turn out to be positive are oil, French fries, butter, the fries which are fried in oil, deep fried. Any item which is deep fried, they are going to give you extremely positive fat test. Those which are shallow fried, they also contain oil, but at least in lesser amount. So fat test again is very effective. Now you would have seen that this is the reason why whenever your mom prepares pakoras, what she does is she takes a tissue paper and then she puts the pakoras over there, so that the oil which is present in the pakoras should get absorbed by the tissue paper. So that is why that is done. So that's about the fat test for various substances. So with this you saw that it is very easy for us to find out whether a particular substance contains proteins or carbohydrates or fats. So now that we have learnt about all of these three, let's test for different food items. So let's consider milk. Now when you perform all the 3 tests for milk, you would see that milk is a very rich source of proteins. So it gives a positive test for proteins. You think of spinach. So spinach also contains protein, but not in very large amounts, but in moderate amounts. You think of groundnuts. These groundnuts, they contain proteins, they also contain fats, because as I said, one particular food item can have multiple nutrients. You think of bread. So bread, they contain a lot of carbohydrates, so they give a positive test for carbohydrates. Think of rice. Again, rice also gives a positive test for carbohydrates. Pulses, they definitely give a very much positive test for proteins. Apple. In case of apple, we see that the starch test comes out to be negative, showing that apple doesn't contain any carbohydrate. So this is another example of negative test. So you will see that a lot of these substances will give negative test for other food items. For example, spinach might give you a negative test for fat. So apple gives you a negative test for starch. Potato, they are again rich in carbohydrates, so they will give you a positive starch test. Think of boiled egg. So boiled egg, they contain a lot of proteins. They also contain some amount of healthy fats. So some items have multiple nutrients. For example, the boiled egg, the groundnuts, even milk. So they have multiple nutrients. But we should know that which food item contains which nutrient and approximately in how much amount, so that we can plan our diet accordingly. So that let's say there is a person who has very less fat in his body, so he needs fat. So that person can eat or consume more food which is rich in fat. So we have to know that which food item is rich in fat and which food item is like low in fat. And so for that purpose, these tests help.
I hope you found the video useful. If at all you have a feedback to share, do let us know in the comment section. If you really like the video, do not forget to share it with your friends. I will meet you guys very soon with a new video, with a new topic. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.